Alright, what's going on, guys? It's your boy Yoloswaggleton, and it has been a minute since the last review. Before you have your mouse hovering over the dislike button and say, "This person fucking sucks," let me just state that this is my review, which means
that's my opinion!
If you disagree, you can let me know in the comments without spamming dislike. Or just fucking dislike anyway. I hope you get really comfortable with this background footage of getting nay-nayed, since it's the only clip I have related to the topic of this video. I'll be sure to spice it up somehow. Let's get into it. Solar opposites. It's okay.
Why you boring me? I'm right.
I genuinely believe what hinders the show the most is the obvious comparisons to Rick and Morty, since one of the creators did fucking create it after all. When I watched the first episode of Solar Opposites, I genuinely found it to be dreadful. Comedy is very subjective, but I don't feel like any of the jokes in episode 1 landed in comparison to jokes landing even in the worst episodes of Rick and Morty. The first episode didn't engage me in any way, and it didn't do anything that significant to immerse me into this universe. Meanwhile, the first episode of Rick and Morty, they literally fucking die, and they introduce a really refreshing premise to a TV show that many people are unfamiliar with, the multiverse. Now, being a DC fan, I was very familiar with the multiverse, as every single day I had to explain that Batman vs Superman was not in the same continuity as The Dark Knight. So obviously, Rick and Morty brought an insane concept with the multiverse that people fell in love with, and even I thought it was done in an entertaining fashion that made me really enjoy the show. Now let's look at the first episode of Solar Opposites. They're aliens, stranded on a planet trying to fit in with humans, and they think a mascot called Fun Bucket is real. This is just fucking reverse Planet 51. When you compare the two pilots, you can kind of tell which one is interesting and which one is not. I didn't find episode 2 that funny or interesting either, but it got slowly better until I'd say episode 4, which I thought was pretty good. Episode 4 was the first time I laughed, and it's not like I had a stick up my ass the entire time. I wanted to laugh, but a lot of the jokes were just dreadfully unfunny. So why was episode 4 good? I want to say it was the first time I felt the premise of the show itself had any actual value to the show itself. The episode, if I'm not mistaken, for 3 or 5, I'm pretty sure it's 4, is about Korvo and Terry trying to learn why their neighbors dislike them so much in order to gain their approval. I felt like the fact that they were aliens was completely irrelevant up until this episode. You can genuinely swap them for humans for episodes 1 through 3, and it would almost make perfect sense without the minor racist implications in the show. Which I also think the racial subject matter is inappropriate in this kind of show. Don't get me wrong, some media handles the subject really well, but having a subtext of the racism of humans in a show about actual fucking aliens is equivalent to conducting a vision test to someone who is blind. It's just not really appropriate with the context, isn't it? It's not that humans' hatred for aliens hasn't been seen before, but the protagonists of the show are genuinely assholes, so are the humans not supposed to be annoyed by them? It doesn't make sense. Well, episode 4 was good. It showed the aliens' insecurities and fleshed out the show a bit, which was much more enjoyable. I totally forgot what episode 5 was about, so instead I'll talk about the characters themselves. I like Korvo, Terry, and the aliens' kids. They're fun characters. They're easy to understand. You can distinguish their personalities quite well. That's good writing. The characters are a bit more of a positive to the show, but that's not to say that Terry and Korvo can get pretty unlikable sometimes, because they just never seem to have good intentions up until the 4th episode where they just want people to like them. I always thought the subplots with the kids were stronger, like story-wise, and funnier. It feels like the two are constantly learning off each other since their personalities clash so much, and I really like that. Korvo and Terry are very different characters, but they never seem to further each other's character development up until the final episode, which I'll get to later. Episode 6 was pretty funny, nothing special, but it was worthy to note that by this point my opinion of the show was really starting to turn around. Perhaps I was a bit too harsh on it. I was thinking of other adult animated shows like Mr. Pickles and The Cleveland Show, and I realized that this show may not be as good as Rick and Morty, but it's vastly more enjoyable than some of its colleagues. I was looking at around the 6 out of 10 around this point, and then episode 7 arrived, and oh boy did it fucking come in hard. This episode was incredible, on an episode that would rival even some of the best Rick and Morty episodes. It took a step back from the main plot of the show and followed a subplot of the wall of humans. This episode was nearly perfect. The comedy, the drama, the plot, the twist, it was all mastercrafted beautifully. It genuinely made me wish we got a show with this premise as a focus by Justin Roiland, because this was just much more in his element. It was also much more interesting in comparison to the main plot of the show. I'd say go watch this episode alone in a heartbeat, but some early episodes provide necessary context, so just give the show a watch every now and then until you get to this handsome hunka hunka. This bumped it to an easy 7 out of 10 alone. Now let's talk episode 8, the final episode. We return back to the main story arc with Korvo, Terry, and the kids. The subplot with the kids is pretty great in this one, as Yumyulak really wants to be better for his sister, but his sister doesn't really buy it, and Yumyulak too gets nay-nayed. As far as Korvo and Terry, this is the first time we see their relationship actually develop, which only took until the last episode to accomplish. It's pretty solid writing, and you can tell that there's a lot of effort was put into this episode in comparison to others. I think Season 2 has a lot of potential to be something incredible, but this first season just wasted too much time to deliver something actually promising. I just kind of see it as okay now. The comedy itself is objectively toned down from Rick and Morty overall, which doesn't make it bad, but the absurd violence in Rick and Morty adds to its character, while this one is stuck being an exclusive platform deal, which limits what they can actually probably joke about. It's not like they mention Hulu twice during the show. So in conclusion, is the show bad? No. Is it great? Not quite. Is it worth a watch? I'd say so if you can handle the first 2 episodes not being too good. Did Carol Baskin kill her husband? Maybe. I hope Solar Opposites shows its true potential now that the show has fleshed out and established relationships and subplots. It genuinely has potential and showed it with episode 7. So yeah, it's a 7 out of 10 in my book. Thanks everybody for watching. This has been Yoloswaggleton. Peace.